Hey, happy Saturday. It's August 1st. Good Lord, and welcome to the deal. Another month has flown by, and we got another exciting program. Today, we got a really special guest. I told you guys last week that we were going to have the Director of Basketball Operations for Duke University, assistant basketball coach, Nolan Smith, is going to join us in the next segment. And it's his wedding anniversary this weekend, and he's going to give us 15, 20 minutes to talk to him. So stay around for that, because I really want you guys to hear what he has to say. He's doing some great things over in Durham, trying to get to the youth and do something positive. And he's risking his life and limb doing it during the time of coronavirus. And we're going to talk to him about that. So in the next segment, we'll have Nolan Smith. But in the meantime, as always, back with us is Val Atkinson. Val, welcome back to the deal.
Thank you, Ed. Nice to be here.
Hey, man. This has like been action packed since we started doing this in March. There hasn't been a dull week. There's been significant news every week, and I want to start off with the sad news. Is they finally laid to rest Congressman John Lewis. After a whole week of ceremonies. We even talked about it last weekend when we were on the program. And the one thing I was struck by watching his funeral was that the presidents that spoke, including George Bush, who we used to think was the worst president ever, even looked presidential compared to the guy we have now. But on a serious note, back to John Lewis, a lot of people would not be around and doing the things they're doing had it not been for John Lewis and all the other people in the civil rights movement that put their life on the line. Talk to me a little bit about, I know you watched some of the services. Talk to me about the importance of John Lewis again and remind the people why we should be thankful that he was around.
Absolutely. Well, I'm a fan of old movies and documentaries and things like that. One of the documentaries that I've seen recently is one called Harriet, for Harriet Tubman. And I thought I knew all of the little nuances behind her history and her plight, but I just wanted to watch it again. And to save you from going through the whole piece, there were tons of stuff that showed me that she was just a person that refused to give up. You could take her life, but she was not going to give up her struggle that she was doing. Everybody kept telling her no. John Lewis is the same type. He's cut from the same piece of whole cloth as Harriet Tubman was. And that is never say no. He knew walking across that Edmund Pettus Bridge that there was a possibility that he could lose his life or be totally impaired and disabled for life. A lot of things could have happened. And having that knowledge of what can happen, he still decided, this is what I'm going to do. I love his phrases when he said in his response to his parents, grandparents, and other people who were advising him to not get in trouble and don't do the wrong things. And he said, yeah, well, what I want to do is get in the way and do good trouble, get in good trouble. And those things are going to follow John Lewis for a long time. Basically, what that resonated with me, it was He's saying you can't be a spectator in this. You got to get involved. Politics, the battle for civil rights is not a spectator sport. You got to get involved. You got to take risk, and you got to do things that you are afraid to do from time to time. And John Lewis personified that, doing things that most of us were afraid to do.
You're absolutely right about that. I don't think most people would have put their life on the line. I know they wouldn't, because they didn't. He did, and other people did. You know, there were so many stories in during his service, and one of the things that stuck out to me, former Mayor Campbell was a part of the service, and he's from Raleigh, and he mentioned SNCC and its founding at Shaw University. We're here in North Carolina, for people who are looking at us or listening to us from other places. You know, we're right here in North Carolina. Shaw University is no more than a couple of miles from where I'm recording this today. And just knowing that there are people here who also were sacrificing. It took a lot of people, but John Lewis really, personified that. He put his life on the line. You've seen the picture of him being hit in the head by Alabama State Trooper and risking his life. And so we're forever thankful for him. One of the other people that spoke, Val, was former President Barack Obama. And one of the things he talked about was voting and how important it was. And of course, the right immediately said that the president politicized Representative Lewis' funeral. But that's what Representative Lewis was fighting for, voting rights. At the time, he said that only 2% of eligible voters were registered to vote in Alabama. And even President Obama brought up the fact that most of them had to count the number of jelly beans in a jar to be able, or tell you exactly how many jelly beans were in a jar to be able to vote, or either pay a poll tax. And that's what John Lewis was fighting for. Talk to me about voting and the importance of voting, and again, why John Lewis is so important to that in a time when our president is talking about maybe trying to postpone the election.
Well, I'd like to start at the beginning in talking about how important it is that we know the fundamentals of the 24th Amendment. The 24th Amendment was about poll taxes, and not just the poll tax themselves, but anything that caused you to have to pay a price to qualify to vote. And it was in many ways, they said, if you haven't paid taxes and you want to qualify to vote, you got to go all the way back to the beginning and do that. You have to count the number of jelly beans, as you said. One of my examples that I mentioned in my first book was Henry Fry, when he came home from the military. He was a college graduate from A&T, was a captain in the United States Army. He came home to vote, and a high school graduate registrar told him or asked him to take a test. And it was a subjective test. And she came out and says, well, you don't qualify. You didn't pass the test. And it's always been said that she probably didn't even look at it or couldn't read it herself. Henry Fry goes on to be the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of the state of North Carolina. It's crazy stuff like that. But the one that I reference most, Ed, is my own parents. My dad and my mom neither ever voted. My dad lived to be 91. He never voted. He had the fear of God put in him. He thought that if he voted, it was going to get back to his boss, and somehow he would lose his job. Mom never voted either because of that same reason. So my sister and I, just the two of us, vowed that every time that we had a chance to vote, once we started, we would never, ever miss the opportunity to vote. And as of right now, this day that I speak, we have kept that promise. We have voted. My first time voting in a presidential election was in 1968. That was the first presidential election after the Voting Rights Act was passed. And I haven't missed one since. I'm very proud of that. But there are a lot of things like that. We don't want any more Val Atkinsons or Brenda Atkinsons out there that have to take up for moms and dads that either couldn't vote or were afraid to vote.
Wow, that's an incredible story, Val. I didn't know that, and I'm glad you told that. I mean, it's very personal, but it speaks to the fact that John Lewis was right. To go out and sacrifice like he did, and all those other people, so that it wouldn't be a worry for you to go and vote. You would just take it as that you have that right and you should exercise it, and that's an incredible story. I do want to just wrap up this whole talk about John Lewis, but we also remember C.T. Vivian died this week. We know Joseph Lowry died earlier this year, and that means, Val, that a lot of these civil rights leaders that we knew are dying off. Jesse Jackson's not a young man anymore. Al Sharpton's not a young man anymore. Reverend Lawson, who spoke at the funeral, is 91. A lot of these folks are very old. Talk to me real quick about do we have leaders coming up that are cut from the same cloth? And I'm not trying to downgrade any of the folks from Black Lives Matter or any of the other organizations, but are we missing something? Have we not cultivated the next generation of leaders? Are there John Lewises out there? I guess is what I'm asking.
The short answer, Ed, is no. And the reason is because of how we prepared people for that particular job and responsibility back in the 50s and 60s. Back in the 50s and 60s, there were no opportunities to be in the C-suite on the 31st floor of one of these high rises. There were no opportunities to be a general officer in the United States military, no opportunities to be, in many cases, your own boss and be aware and be responsible for your family's well-being and be a millionaire and in some cases billionaire. These things didn't happen back in the 50s and 60s. So all of the best and brightest that we had end up being a part of the movement. And the movement had people that could have been mathematicians, they could have been geniuses, they could have been politicians, they could have been businessmen. But the only thing they could do was to get in the movement. And that's why we had so many great scholarly academicians that did a great job for everybody. We don't have those anymore because people are taking different options. And that's a double-edged sword. We could say that, well, that's good because now they are doing these things, these other things that we wanted. It's good in a way, and I applaud that. At the same time, there is a dearth of leadership as well now because we don't have that anymore. And we need to understand the reason we don't have it so that we can start a plan, a movement, if you will, a sub-movement to start training and getting people into positions that they can take over when some of our current leaders are no longer capable of providing the leadership that we've had.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to remind the folks you're watching or listening to The Deal with Ed Clark and, as always, Val Atkinson. And we were talking about John Lewis and voting and who the next generations of leaders are going to be. I do want to give you a program note if you watched it and didn't see the very beginning. We got a really special guest in the second segment, Nolan Smith. He is the assistant basketball coach, director of basketball operations at Duke University.
Oh, what school is that again?
Let's see. I knew this was going to happen. Duke University. Nolan Smith is going to be in with us, so we're waiting for him to join us. So in the next 3 or 4 minutes, we'll take a break and get Nolan on the line because I want you to hear what he's doing. And Val, that brings up a point about leaders of the future. Nolan, a young man who's out on the street, talking to kids in the street, putting himself out there to try to help folks. So in the next 3 or 4 minutes, we'll take a break and then we'll get him on, and we'll want to hear his story. But in the meantime, before we take a break, Val, I got one other question for you. COVID-19 is not going anywhere. We've seen escalation in deaths. We're hitting 1,000 people nearly, every day. The numbers still don't look good. Most of the school systems are talking about starting virtual, at the beginning of the year. There's even down in Florida where they were trying to push the open schools. And then we had the president again pushing hydroxychloroquine, and he actually had tried to push a doctor in Houston, a Dr. Stella Emanuel, who said that demon sperm was the problem that most women were facing from their gynecological problems, that she's also treated patients successfully with hydroxychloroquine. Let's leave out Dr. Stella Emanuel. I wrote a piece about her, so if you go to the dealwithedclark.com, you can see what I have to say about Dr. Emanuel. But let's talk about COVID-19. Donald Trump has started doing these daily briefs again, but now he's only doing it by himself with no doctors at all. Are those, and this isn't really even about COVID-19, it's a question about why he's doing these at all. Is just because he can't do in-person events anymore? Because when he did the one in Tulsa, it resulted in the death of Herman Cain. Now, people can say that, Ed, you're not sure that he got it when he was at that event, but Herman Cain specifically said, I ain't wearing no mask, made a big deal about not wearing a mask. He was around other people, so either he had it then or he got it then. And that if he had it then, that means he was spreading it to other people. And if he got it then, that means the president is titularly responsible for him having it because he encouraged people not to wear masks. What do you think about that? And also about the president's restarting his corona briefing?
Well, I think that Dr. Fauci is right. We're going to be judged on what we do now, and not what we say. We're going to be judged on what we do. And the president, what he's doing is leading by example to those people that don't want to wear masks, to those folks who care more about the economy than they do people. And if you don't have people, you don't need an economy. There's no such thing as an economy if you don't have people. You have people that work under different economies other than capitalism. But Donald Trump is convinced that he is the world's greatest salesperson and that he can sell anybody on anything. And this is one of his biggest tests. He's trying to sell the American people on the idea that in the face of a pandemic, they can pretend that it doesn't exist, go along their merry way, keep the economy going, and just like Puff the Magic Dragon, the coronavirus will see that we have no fear. It will become afraid of the United States of America and Puff go away. I just don't believe that we had 62 million people in the United States of America that would vote for a person like that. But that's what they did in November of 2016. And I can tell you, Ed, there will be about that same number, if not more, vote for him this time after they've seen what he's about, what he's capable of, what he's not capable of. They'll still go down as supporting Donald Trump. Donald Trump is going to hurt us as far as the coronavirus is concerned. There were some people in Europe, and I apologize for not remembering who said this, but their point was that American-style democracy is not suited for handling a pandemic like COVID-19. And what they meant by that is that being an extrovert type of society and culture, being a show-off, being a type of person that likes to be seen, being an individualist, that we don't like people telling us what to do, how to do it, or with what. We like to have it our way about everything. These types of attitudes, if that's what your culture is made of, it's going to be very difficult for you to come together as a group and do things that you don't want to do or that you don't think's right, but it's best for the whole of you. It's best for the country as a whole. That's why American style democracy, and I like to replace that word with culture, because democracy has to do with the political element, and culture is your way of life and the way you do things. So American style culture is what's preventing us from doing what we need to do to fight this virus called COVID-19.
Well, you said that, Val. You know what? I'm being told that we have Nolan Smith waiting for us. So let's take a short break, and when we come back, Nolan Smith is going to join us, the the director of basketball operations at Duke University, assistant basketball coach, all-around good guy, former professional player with the Portland Trail Blazers. He's going to be in with us. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. You're watching The Deal with Ed Clark and Val Atkinson. Welcome back to The Deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark, and thanks for taking the time with us. This is our second segment of the show. As I promised last week, we were going to have a special guest. Nolan Smith, the head of basketball operations at Duke University, is joining me. And Val, Nolan, welcome to The Deal.
Thank y'all so much for having me on.
Well, I've been thinking about you a lot because I saw you were out in the streets trying to talk to young folks. And a lot of times, especially during this really weird time, a lot of people are afraid to even just get out of the house. Yep. And there's a lot going on in Durham because you're in Durham, North Carolina. Unfortunately, you're at Duke University. You could be over in Chapel Hill, but we'll talk about that later. But you're out in the streets trying to help people. And I think that's important. Tell me what you're trying to achieve by going out in the street and talking to young men in Durham.
Yeah, the first thing for me, being a community leader here in Durham was just to get knowledge. I know a lot about Durham and I know a lot of what's needed. Just when you talk about systemic racism, police brutality, we talked about all those issues. But I have a great relationship here in Durham with the Chief Davis, Mayor Schul. But I really wanted to hear from our youth. I look at our youth as our future. And what we did was we put together our first event was just a wellness pop-up check, because young Black men and women, they see the police brutality, and often, especially during this time, during COVID, they don't have an outlet to just talk about it. And I'm sure they were talking about it at home with their families, but just to really come out and speak about it and hear from other people as far as how it affects them mentally every single day. That's the platform that we wanted to give. So it started out with only about 10 kids, teenagers, I'll say. They weren't kids. They're a little older than kids. But then now it's grown to community events. And we've been giving the whole community different projects here in Durham, from McDougal Terrace to Bragtown, which is where we are tonight, and just giving the community a voice for what they want. And the most beautiful thing that we're doing right now is we are trying to get people out of their houses to open up their mouths, because now is the time that we can create change, for our Black communities and for Black people in general.
Yeah, I hear you. One of the challenges with doing this, and Val and I talk about this all the time. We're in the middle of this pandemic, and obviously you have to be cautious in the way you approach this. And you're talking
Yep.
about an event that you're doing now. How do you even conduct an event where you try to bring people together in light of what's going on with COVID?
Yeah, first thing is passing out masks, and that's one thing I think everybody has felt safe because when as soon as you get there, you're wearing masks. All the events are outside, and we have everything spaced out properly where they're grabbing their food, and I think that just makes people feel comfortable. It feels like it's a safe environment because you don't see people just standing around with no mask. Um, but then, like you said, it is tough because everybody is worried with good reason about catching COVID and spreading COVID. But at the same time, we just want everybody to know, like, if you come out, it's a safe place from everything. It's a safe place from violence. There are police officers out there, and just making sure everybody knows that it's 100% safe, and we're taking all the proper protocol. We even have hand sanitizer being passed around.
All
Hmm.
right. Nolan, this is Val Atkinson again. Listen, I want to talk about this program and the marketing of it. It's a wonderful program, a wonderful approach to getting things done. If folks are listening or folks have heard of what you're doing, what can they expect to know about it in terms of the handle that you have? What is it known as? And how are you marketing it and getting it out to the people that you exist and why do you exist?
Yep. So it started. We ended up coming up with the name Blast, and all this is coming together right now. Because, like I said, at the start of it, it was just spare the moment, sitting in the house, angry, also needing to vent, also wanting to speak, also and just wanting to create change. So then we partnered with a bunch of community leaders, people that have already been trying to fight for change here in Durham, people that have already been on the with their hard hat on, fighting for a better community. So when we got with them, we came up with the term Blast, which is building leaders amongst our community. And just in doing that, we're basically going to start creating community safe spaces. We're working with the mayor. I actually brought him out to a space the other day to see it, and basically trying to just apply pressure to Durham to give our children a safe space to go. After school programs, just along the list. The list is long because obviously we all know there's a lot that needs to be done to make sure Black children are getting the resources to be successful. We want to give them all. We want to give them all the things. And as a member of the Brotherhood, which is what we call ourselves, the former Duke basketball players, we're involved. I'm getting Grant Hill involved. We look at Durham as our second home for the ones that don't live here. So just to have that backing, have Coach K's backing, when I go out here, I know I have an army of brothers behind me from Duke basketball players, but then just out in the community, we have really come together, to create this change.
Yeah, I want to remind the folks you're watching or listening to the deal. If you're listening to the podcast and if you're watching us online, we're fortunate to have Nolan Smith with us. He's the director of basketball operations at Duke, former national champion while he was at Duke, a high draft pick in the NBA with the Portland Trail Blazers, and now he is a community activist in Durham, and we're very fortunate because, Nolan, one of the things I hear when I'm listening to you is your desire to make things better. And I know you have some personal experience with the police that wasn't a positive experience, and you were just tending your business. You feel comfortable telling us about your experience with the Durham police?
Yeah, absolutely. The one situation here in Durham, and it's crazy. I've had three incidents and I tell this story. I have three incidents where I could have been a hashtag. I think that's really what I've been spreading when I've been out here talking, just because really just want to let everybody know that even though I played in the NBA and I have a stature or a place of power, whatever people might call it, like at the end of the day, I'm still Black. I'm still Black. When I walk out the house, I'm a Black man. And to understand that, and when I drive my car, if I go for a run in the neighborhood, my wife, if it gets dark, she's calling me. Shayna's like, yo, where you at? You've been out running a little too long. Come on, bring that butt back to the house. So I turn around because I understand that fear that she had. So my run-in with the Durham police, it started, it was about, 2016. I was with Gerald Henderson, longtime NBA player, played for the Charlotte Hornets, Bobcats. And we're just driving. We're leaving a Duke event, and we were driving across the street. And at the time, I had a Chevy Tahoe with rims, tinted windows. That was the car that I had when I was in the NBA. So I'm driving, and we see a cop, and the cop pulls behind us. So right away, I roll my windows down, following protocol just so they can see in the car, try and let them know, we're safe. We ain't doing nothing crazy. So they still cut the lights on. They pull behind us. As soon as they get up on us, they jump out the cars, they have their guns out, and they have them drawn on us. And I end up looking to my right. I'm having to tell Gerald Henderson, I'm like, gee, don't move. Because I feel like if he would have bent down or like scratched his ankle or something, thinking it was just a normal traffic stop, there's no telling what could have happened. And it's crazy. We talk about it now. We're like, man, that was a crazy situation. Like, because by the end of it, they end up telling us, they're like, oh, your truck fit the description of a drug dealer's car. The tinted window, we couldn't see in. So they said all this stuff, and it just hit me. I'm just like, so that's your reasoning for pulling guns out. Like, that's the reason for being that close to killing somebody, because you couldn't see in the car or we fit a description. And that just, when I think about all the stories that I could have been a hashtag, it's just, when you fit the description, like that's not a good reason. And that's why when you hear about people talking about police reform or defunding the police, that's why you get there. And my whole thing is not, I'm not so much out here yelling defund the police, but police reform is my big thing. As far as, how do we weed out the racist police? How are they training? How are they being taught? How are they policing, our Black communities? How are they handling themselves? And the Chief Police Davis is doing an amazing job. She's a Delta. She's a Black lady. She gets it. And I think she is holding her officers accountable. And that's one thing in America that is not being done. As a whole, they don't hold each other accountable.
Yeah, Val, you hear Nolan's story there, and I think we all have some sort of incident like that. It gives you pause, because even now, I could Nolan, I could tell you stories where this same thing happened when I was driving my nice, SUV, and you have to then. I remember one incident where immediately, once they knew I had been an athlete at UNC, they were willing to, try to be better friends with me, and then started asking me, did I know Michael Jordan, and did I know, James Worthy, which I do. But what did that have to do after you had accosted me and had like you said, had guns drawn? Let's talk about what you want to see happen next. You have a good relationship with the police chief. You have a good relationship with the mayor. Are you bringing in and you're bringing in guys from the Duke family into this?
Yep.
How can we help? Is there anybody else that you need to join this movement? Is there a way to be a participant with you, or what would you need, from other folks to help out with this?
Yeah, I think the next step for me is going to be really getting petitions signed. I think strength in numbers is always going to be a thing when you come with the Army, and you come with, a strong backing of people that also want to see the same change. That's going to be our next step. So right now, we're coming up with different proposals that we're going to take to the city. And some of these proposals and demands are really little. They're really little things that I like to think that we'll get them done. But like being in these different communities, looking to put up basketball courts, looking to put up playgrounds. I mean, they've torn down playgrounds in a lot of these communities. So when we go out there and we're standing around and the kids come up, they're like, they're so excited to actually have some fun stuff going on. We see why. So that's going to be one of the very first things that we're trying to get done, is just, where can our kids play? That's the biggest question that we've been asked. Where can our kids play? Where can they learn? Where can they feel like they are cared about, by the city of Durham? That has to go up. So when we start applying pressure and asking for certain things, it's going to take a lot of signing, a lot of names on a list, to where they see, a strong backing to make sure that we all want the same change.
Speaking of basketball, Nolan, what can you tell us, if anything, about any plans that you may be privy to for this upcoming 2020-2021 collegiate basketball season in light of COVID-19.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'll say that. I think we're still waiting for answers. They have not said yet when we're gonna play, but they have said we're gonna play, and I definitely believe that. As long as I think schools across the country, as student athletes begin to return to campuses, our guys get here on Sunday. As long as the student athletes understand the seriousness of this virus and do what they're supposed to do to stay safe, we will have a season. I think best case we will be starting in January with conference play, and then there'll be some type of NCAA tournament, to crown a champion this year. But definitely just the seriousness of it, I think that's going to be a huge thing in order to have a season.
Yeah, we're in interesting times, Nolan and Val. It's going to be interesting. Have you watched any of the NBA restart? Do you watch last night? And what do you think about looking at a game with no fans? And what is that like to you?
It's crazy. It's crazy. I can never think of it. Like, we play pickup games in an empty gym. Like, you get excited, you get motivated to play, but a real game, real jerseys, no fans, like made up sound and effects, like it has to be a weird feeling for those guys. But as professionals, they're out there handling themselves, and competitive nature always is going to kick in at some point.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Val.
Yeah, that's great. One of the big topics that's discussed amongst us fans, non-professionals, is the whole business of one and done. We are talking now lately about some high school kids making decisions to tap the waters of HBCUs instead of PWIs and those kinds of things. I'm thinking that would have an impact, a considerable impact on basketball phenoms like that are found in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
If people start making decisions to tap the waters of Howard University, A&T, North Carolina Central University, and the greatest of them all, Norfolk State, I would say that. What can you tell us about that? Any feelings you might have?
Yeah, I'm very excited about that. I'm an honorary Eagle. I say that all the time, and a lot of NCCU Eagles will say the same thing, because I spent so much time over at Central when I was here. Reason for that, when I came to Duke, it was a culture shock being on this campus for me. Coming from DC, I was like, where am I? So it was I loved my time here because of that. And I think now with players looking at that as an option, I think there's so many different avenues now. I mean, every basketball player wants to get to the NBA. That's their goal. So I think now for them to realize, like for Zion Williamson, if Zion Williamson went to Central, he would have still been the number one pick. So just for players to understand, like, look, there's more than just these Dukes, Kentuckys, Carolinas. Like, there's more than that. Now, do I feel like HBCUs are ready to take that on? Because there's things that comes with it, having a top basketball player at your school, the facilities, funding, the alumni base. Like, what are they doing to really take care of these top athletes? Those are the things that need to be addressed before they really get these players to come there. Like cold tubs and hot tubs. I mean, I had so many friends at Central, they used to call me, yo, no, can I get in y'all cold tub real quick? My body's hurting. Yeah, come on. I'd bring them over here to get in the cold tub. Like, little things like that are going to be the determining factor. That's going to be like, hey, can Central, how can they get a top 10 player, to come and then get more to follow, because it's a big thing. But I think it's coming. I think it's coming, and I'm excited about it.
Well, Nolan, that is very big of you to be able to say. You're director of basketball operations at Duke University, the school to go to if you want to play basketball. And to be honest like that, I think is really important. Dude, I'm telling you, we only got a few minutes left, but like I said, I've been wanting to bring you on here for a long time. it's been very well worth it. I hope people have gotten something out of this. You even made Val wear his Duke shirt today. And I was going to wear my Carolina shirt, but I was trying to be respectful. So next time, though, I don't know. But in all seriousness, Nolan Smith, I think you're doing the right thing, and we want to support that here, and we're going to make sure that we do. I know the Duke family. I've worked with some Duke guys in the past. I actually played rugby on the Duke grad rugby team for a long time. Yes. So I used to be on campus all the time over there. So, I have to rub it in. But we do appreciate what you're trying to do, and we're going to help support that as much as we can. Val, you want to close out with anything with Nolan before we leave? Or?
Nolan, I'll just say we are all of our Duke fans out in the Triangle area and beyond. Wish you well. We're pulling for you 100%. I've been a Duke fan since '83. Go to a lot of games now. Started going in about '84, still go to them now. And I became a real Duke fan when my money went over there. My son and my daughter-in-law are alumni of Duke. So yep. I'm dyed in the wool. I'm dyed in the wool over there. And we appreciate you and we support you. And if there's anything, I'm sure I speak for Ed when I say this, that the deal or connections on the radio show can do to help your cause as you're doing it in Durham, please give us a call. We'll be glad to help you promote your initiative. We believe in this.
Yes, sir. No, thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, folks. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap it up with me and Val. We're going to talk about the news and try to figure out what's going on in the world. In the meantime, Nolan Smith, Director of Basketball Operations, Duke University. Thanks a lot. We'll be back after these messages.
George Floyd. His name was George Floyd. Say his name.
Say his name.
George Floyd. Say his name.
Say their names. Once again and always, we fight for justice. Black Lives Matter. Go to blacklivesmatter.com.
Hey, welcome back to The Deal. I'm your host, Ed Clark, and joined along with Val Atkinson. I hope you got a lot out of the last guest. Val, I mean, to have someone the stature of Nolan Smith in with us, I mean, all our guests are great, but he was very generous of his time. It's his anniversary this weekend, and he took 20 minutes out of his time to come in and spend with us, and I hope you got something out of that. Please share it with people that you know. And Val, I'm pretty sure you appreciate it. Everybody can see that emblem you have on your shirt there.
Yeah, I appreciated seeing a Dookie come up, a young Dookie that's out in the community doing great things. And the thing I took away, Ed, I appreciated his candor when we asked him questions about his Duke family and what Duke's people were doing and how they felt about one and done and those kinds of things. And he didn't run from the questions like a lot of people do. He answered it forthright, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, and I was really pleased about his support for HBCUs, and he talked about how his connectivity to North Carolina Central and how he supported people going to HBCU if that's the right place for them. And that's a big thing to say because everybody wants to go to Duke or Carolina, and he was like, no, that is not always the right thing, and it's incredible. So again, thanks Nolan Smith, and hopefully we can have him back and he can talk about all the things he's doing over in Durham. Val, let's get back to business though. The next thing I wanted to talk to you about is it's August the 1st, and Joe Biden said he's going to pick a vice presidential pick today or sometime early, in the week, in the first of the month. We're into August now. I've been hearing Representative Karen Bass of California's name a lot. I don't see that as being the logical pick for him, but maybe I'm missing something. Talk to me about who you think the pick is going to be.
Well, let me talk about how these decisions have been made historically and why. Most presidential candidates try to choose a running mate that's going to help them on the election road. Many times they'll choose someone from a state that is a battleground state or an iffy state for them. Maybe that person will bring in a few more 100,000 votes to help them win the election. In the case of California, anybody from California or New York, Democrats would be throwing away a possibility because Democrats are going to win both states anyway. Georgia is a state in play, the state that Stacey Abrams hails from. She had a very, very close gubernatorial race with the Secretary of State there. And that could be enough to switch things around and throw things her way. Val Deming, I believe, hails from Florida. That's critically important. But Kamala Harris is also from California, and which does not give us anything. And there are a lot of people saying that Kamala Harris is a alpha dog, and whether or not he needs that or not is questionable. So we're
running out of people, Val. So
I know there's a lot of questions here as to whom he's going to throw things. I think he really wants to stay with a woman of color, not just a woman that he's already promised, but a woman of color. That may not be a good news for Elizabeth Warren, although she claims to have Native American heritage. But anyway, if you tie me down and force me to bet, I would have to put my money on Susan Rice. Because of the foreign policy experience that she brings that no other candidate save Elizabeth Warren could even come close to providing that. She's bright, she's smart, she's experienced, and she doesn't have to tell you what she did in her state. She's worked in the White House before.
And she worked with Joe Biden,
nations
right? Yeah, and she worked with Joe Biden for all those years.
Right, and she knows the White House person. She worked with Joe Biden before. She knows Joe Biden personally, up front and close, and the mentor to them both, Barack Obama. And so for that reason, I would sort of go with Susan and I think she would be able to get some of those 2 or 3 people in the middle that haven't made up their mind yet. I think she won't be turning anybody off. There are a couple of candidates, and I won't name who they are, that have the ability to both attract and repel voters. And we just would hope that they would attract more than they would repel. But in the case of Susan, I think she'll be well in the attraction side of the house, and she won't hurt us in repelling.
Yeah, I hear you. I hate to bring this up, but I did hear something earlier in the week. Charlemagne, the radio talk show host and internet host, who made a lot of news a few months back when he had Joe Biden on, and Joe Biden said, "You ain't black if you think I don't, support black issues." Also said this week that if Joe Biden didn't pick a black woman, he would still have a problem with maybe supporting Joe Biden. And Val, I just think that kind of thinking is not altogether there. Say, for example, if Joe Biden picks Amy Duckworth, who's Asian, who was also a fighter pilot, who lost her legs in fighting in Iraq and when her helicopter crashed or whatever. If he picked her, she's a senator. She's still a minority. But Joe Biden already said he was definitely going to pick a black woman for the Supreme Court, which I think is a much more important position. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is back in the hospital again this week. Talk to me about, say, if he goes out on the limb and picks an Amy Duckworth, or he does pick Elizabeth Warren, these people who are saying that they're going to have to rethink their support for Joe Biden. Like I said, I almost don't want to talk about it because I don't think it's practical thinking. but some people are saying it, and so I guess we need to talk about it. What do you think about people like Charlemagne saying stuff like that?
Well, I think they need to keep quiet. They really don't understand politics, Ed, and they don't understand that everything you say has the potential of being used as a talking point by the opposition. And you don't give a man a bat to beat you with. You know, make him go get his own weapon if he's going to strike you. Don't help him out, you know. What we've got to learn, we've got to start talking about those things that are positive, that's going to help us out in our goal and push us forward. We can't get into a position that we are treating it like a court case, like we have to argue and beat down every piece of evidence that the opposition puts forth. You can't do that because you end up arguing about something that really means nothing. You end up giving legs, as we call it in the media. You're giving legs to a subject that everybody else had put under the table and was gone. Why are you giving legs to it? You know, now I know why certain media companies do that. I'm gonna name them, but Charlemagne, people like that, I can excuse them because, like I said, they don't understand politics. But it's up to people that do understand politics to get to people like that and just tell them, just chill. We got this. Let's find another subject for you to talk about. Find another way that you can help get to our goals. But I'm not going to help you give Donald Trump a talking point.
Exactly. I hear you. Let's switch gears real quick. And before we do that, I want to remind the folks you're watching The Deal with Ed Clark and Val Atkinson again today. We were fortunate to have Nolan Smith in the last segment. So if you didn't see that, go back, look at that after we wrap up here. But Val, in the time we got left, Bill Barr, he's supposed to be the Attorney General of the United States, finally went up to the House to testify. And I use that term loosely because it was more of a combative, contentious kind of thing instead of him testifying. I think a lot of questions still didn't get answered. He didn't answer what really happened on June 1st when the president wanted to go hold the Bible in front of the church. He wouldn't answer the question about what would happen if the president didn't like the outcome of the election. He wouldn't answer about how he interfered in the Roger Stone case and some other things. Is there really anything you can do about a Bill Barr? I mean, I know I heard some of the congressional representatives say that, you know, they may take action because he obviously lied in front of them. But everybody in the Trump administration seems to have been able to skate so far. Is anything going to happen to Bill Barr?
I hope so. I hope he's going to be held to account for his actions. Constitutionally speaking, Bill Barr holds one of those positions that happens to be impeachable by the Constitution of the United States. And charges can be filed, impeachment charges can be filed against him in the House. And even if this particular Congress, meaning the Senate, doesn't want to take it up for trial, it could be a kind of thing that it could be done after the new Congress is sworn in on January 3rd. The new Congress is sworn in on January 3rd, and the president is sworn in, of course, on January 20th. So if there's an impeachment issue and the Democrats win the Senate, as many pollsters think they just might, then Bill Barr is in big trouble. He would be in big trouble because he definitely could be impeached by the House. And then he won't have the majority in the Senate to protect him. And he could be in substantial trouble. I want to say one thing about Bill Barr before we move on. Bill Barr is one of those guys that remind me of the character that feels that he is the smartest guy in the room, regardless of who's in the room or what they're talking about. That's Bill Barr. And, it started when he was Attorney General back in the H.W. Bush administration. He wrote a 19-page paper telling Trump that he believed in the unitary presidency and how he could help him be a dictator. And I'm paraphrasing here. He didn't say exactly that, but that was the gist of his 19-page letter, that he could show him how to be a dictator under American law, and nobody could do anything for him. And he knew that Trump had a hard-on for Jeff Sessions, and that's why they parted ways, because Jeff Sessions would not tote water for Trump like he wanted to. Now Jeff Sessions sees how he was expected to act. Bill Barr is showing Jeff Sessions, this is the way Trump wanted you to behave. And I won't give Jeff Sessions a lot of credit, but Bill Barr, to answer your question, Ed, Bill Barr is not out of the woods in terms of getting in trouble. Because like I say, he lies. I think people in Congress, before they interview another guy like Bill Barr or Bill Barr himself, need to go through some training to find out how to question a guy like Bill Barr. It is an art and a science. You have to know how to deal with this guy, because he is one of the best I've seen in terms of turning your question into another question and putting you on the defensive.
Right.
You're the person supposed to be questioning him. Next thing you know, you're on the defensive, trying to defend your position against him. He's very skilled. He is very, very good, but he's not the second most intelligent person on the planet. We already know who the first one is, because he tells us all the time. The last name is Trump. But he's not the second most intelligent person, although he thinks he is.
Well, two people I don't think are as intelligent as they think they are, Donald Trump and Bill Barr. Let's stay in Congress for a second. Louis Gohmert, one of the House of Representative members from Texas, he's tested positive for COVID. He was in that hearing. He refused to wear a mask. He was called down by the chairman a couple of times for flouting that. And then, of course, afterwards, we find out that he has COVID. He's tested positive for COVID. He was supposed to fly to Texas with the president when the president went on, I think it was on Wednesday. But now it's obvious that this guy has been walking around the halls of Congress refusing to wear a mask. There's janitors there. There are police officers there. There are, all kind of people, interns, all kind of people walking in and out. And apparently from people in his own office said that he told them he had COVID without a mask on. And then he had been berating them for wearing a mask in the office. People like Louis Gohmert are dangerous. We already know that. Herman Cain, who we talked about earlier, succumbed to COVID because he was listening to people like Louis Gohmert. Why is this political, Val? I'm still trying to figure out that even after someone like Herman Cain dies, there's been other people who've died. Why is it that the Republicans still are using this as a political issue?
One guy named Donald Trump, Ed, he's taken the position that Democrats want the economy to be hurt, to hurt his chances for re-election, and therefore they don't feel the same way he does about the coronavirus. So he wants to be against what the scientists are saying, to show that corona is not as tough as everybody is saying. It's just a Democratic fake thing so that they can make sure he doesn't win the election. So he was the first one to start being in public, being around other people, not wearing a mask. And if you are a Donald Trump supporter, if you are a MAGA hat wearer, you can't be seen in public wearing a mask, because it means that you don't have faith. You are not supportive of Donald Trump. And it's caused the deaths of countless number of people, Ed, because they politicized this issue. They wanted to show Donald Trump and the GOP that they were with them, so they didn't have to wear this mask if they did not want to. And this is something that liberals, the left wing, and the Democratic Party was pushing. And they were going to be against it. And one day it was all going to go away. So Donald Trump started the politicization of this mask wearing piece. And right now, he's still doing it. I can count the number of times that I've seen him on TV with a mask on, and it's 2. And he's on TV just about every day doing something. Yeah. And it's unfortunate. It borders on the criminal. And people ought to really be asking themselves, especially those who've lost loved ones, should they be following a guy like Donald Trump, who doesn't have a medical degree? He doesn't know, he's not a scientist, doesn't understand any of that. He is a real estate salesman and a con man.
Not a good real estate salesman.
Right. And we're going to listen to him over the experts, the physicians, the scientists. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, it is dangerous, Val. And again, I just, Herman Cain, I just can't get over that. A grown man with apparently, who was a successful businessman, just would not, think about his own health. He was a cancer survivor. And, that's one of the things that are one of the worst things you could be and have coronavirus. Right. And he still risked his life to support Donald Trump. I still can't fathom how you can make that choice. We got a little bit of time left here, Val. We got about 5 minutes to go. And
let me say one thing, Ed, before you go on to the next, before you leave Herman Cain. I just wanted to say that Herman Cain reminds me of some of the right-wing, far-right people of color who steadfastly support the president and his political ambitions because they have a bone to pick, as it were, with the general African-American populace. They are trying to prove to us, Ed, that they were right, have always been right, and who are we to tell them they must support democratic small d ideals just because they're black? So they are going through life, and we could sit here and rattle off the name of a half dozen more of them, name the subject or issue, and I can tell you the position they're going to take. Simply because they are trying to show us that, yes, I supported Donald Trump in 2016, and I'm going to support him again in 2020, and yes, I am black, and it's okay. And that was Cain. That showed why he came up as a stage 4 cancer survivor, 74 years old, and decided to be in a place like in Tulsa with all of those people without a mask, without social distancing. It doesn't make good sense.
No, it does. I'm glad you brought that up, Van. Those are all very good points, and I want people to listen to what you had to say, because there are some people with a chip on their shoulder. A lot of the conservative black folks that I encounter online or that speak as surrogates for the president, they do seem to be, extreme to the extreme where Herman Cain gave his life, which is, I can't even fathom. I want to turn back to the Senate real quick. And your favorite person, Senator Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Senate. Mitch still doesn't have a plan. The unemployment $600 extension ran out yesterday. The protection for eviction ran out earlier in the week. And we see people are starting to get evicted. I saw a couple of news stories from a couple of states where courts were packed yesterday with people being evicted. Is Mitch McConnell going to be able to pull himself out of the fire here? Or, I mean, the $600 is gone. They're talking about cutting it down to $100 or $200 extra dollars, and they don't have anything on the books for eviction. Why is he going to be able to skate through, or is he going to have to ever pay a price for just being an evil person?
Well, I think it's next to impossible to unseat him in this election coming up because of the mindset of the people of Kentucky. One of the poorest states in the nation, and continually support issues and programs that are against their economic self-interest. But be that as it may, that's what they got to live with. But if Democrats take over the Senate after this election, after January the 3rd, Mitch McConnell will be relegated to the ranking member, and he won't have the power to do the things that he's doing anymore. But getting back to your initial question, Ed, Mitch McConnell has already accomplished, in his mind, the things that he wanted to do. He wanted to alter the courts, the federal court system, district court, appellate court, and Supreme Court. He wanted to alter that for the next several decades, 30, 40, 50 years. And he thinks he's done that. So anything else is gravy, or as I like to say, he's playing with house money now, okay? Anything else is just cherry on top of the cake. And so he feints this and he'll feint that he wants this, and he'll tolerate this or he won't tolerate that. But he really doesn't care about it a lot anymore. He could go home tomorrow losing the race to the Senate, and he could care less as long as we have a ultra right-wing conservative Supreme Court for the next several decades. He feels like he's won.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, Val. I just don't see. Now, I don't know if you noticed, I'm a Kentucky colonel. Governor Brashear, the older Governor Brashear, made me a Kentucky colonel back about 8-9 years ago, maybe 10 years ago now, because of the service to the state of Kentucky that I did. I went to every county in Kentucky and talked about how to get FEMA assistance and some other stuff. So I got to hang out with the governor and drink a lot of good bourbon and spent almost 6 months in Kentucky. But anyway, that time flies when you're having fun, and obviously I'm really pleased that we were able to get Nolan Smith in here today to talk about what he's doing over in Durham. Val, there's just so much going on. I mean, the passing of John Lewis, COVID is still out there. Who's going to be the vice president? It's just news. But, I thought it was a good break to have Nolan Smith on.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, folks, we're going to get out of here. And I want you to come back next week. We're going to do like we always do, look for, some a real exciting guest. We're working as hard as we can to make this program better every week. And we're reaching out to all kind of places. By all means, let us know if you have any ideas for guests or things you want us to talk about. Just go to thedealwithedclark.com. Drop us a line. It's ed@thedealwithedclark.com. Val, what are you working on? As I always ask you, what are you working on, and what do we need to look forward to in the next week?
I'm still about voter education and participation. I want to leave a contact point, ncblackvote@gmail.com. That's NC for North Carolina, Black Vote, ncblackvote@gmail.com. Or if you'd like to leave a text message or voicemail, the number is 919-656-5240. Again, 919-656-5240.
Yeah, well, thanks for that information. And you know what, Val, that makes me think about something. You folks are listening and viewing us from all over the place. When we talk about North Carolina, that's just because we're here. Val's available to speak to your group. We could do Zoom and all kind of stuff. If you need somebody to speak to you about voter education or whatever, he's available. I'm pimping you out, Val, because what some people that don't know who maybe haven't been listening and new viewers to the show, Val's a former professor of political science over at North Carolina Central University. His expertise is media politics, and you've written some books that are very good books on politics and the Black vote and a number of other things. So by all means, pick his brain because it's invaluable to have that kind of knowledge. So Val, thanks again for being with us.
Absolutely.
Also, thank you guys for watching. And we'll be back next week, next Saturday. And we'll have an exciting guest all during the week. Go to the website, thedealwithedclark.com. read my pieces out there, and then you'll get information about who's coming up in the next week. In the meantime, go do something good for somebody, and we'll see you next week. Bye.